There you see President Biden leaving the stage at Pointe du Hoc, the beaches of Normandy, finishing his speech, at times referencing the World War II veterans in the crowd, praising their heroism and bravery, talking about the existential fight between dictatorship and freedom, the dangers of isolationism. There's the president right now shaking hands with one of those veterans, many of them in their 90s, some more than 100 years old, and some of them going back to Normandy for the very first time. The president also making references multiple times to how hard it is to defend democracy. The president said, in speaking of those heroes, that we need to listen to the echo of their voices, to hear them, because they are summoning us. They are asking us, what will we do? Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, who is traveling with the president and joins us now from Normandy. And Mary, the president there multiple times expressing the theme of don't forget the lessons of history.
The president is really urging the world to listen and learn from the voices of the past. He is honoring what happened here 80 years ago while also challenging the next generation. You heard him say they're not asking us to scale these cliffs. They are asking us to stay true to what America stands for. The president stressing, look, democracy is hard work, and it is something that you have to fight for. Throughout his visit here to Normandy to remember and commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the president has really been drawing this through line, challenging the world to remember that what we accomplished 80 years ago, that the challenges and the lessons of that still apply to today, that just as the U.S. and allied forces came together to turn the tide of World War II, so too is the president now trying to rally allies to again protect and preserve democracy, to come together to continue to help defend Ukraine against Russia, which of course we have seen is gaining ground. But of course, what this speech was also very much aimed at a domestic audience back home. You'll note the president, of course, didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but the contrast between the two certainly were clear. The president has argued that Donald Trump is a danger to democracy. He is arguing that he will protect and defend those principles going forward with.
Mary Bruce for us, thank you so much. And some people might note that this speech was a bit of a throwback to 40 years ago, because on that very same spot in 1984, President Reagan marked the 40th anniversary of D-Day with a stirring call to heroism and patriotism in defense of freedom and honoring the sacrifice of those Army Rangers who, again, scaled those cliffs and helped end a war. Let's take a listen to part of that speech.
These are the boys of Pointe du Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. And these are the heroes who helped end a war.
See the striking similarities in the backdrop. That, again, 1984. Let's bring in ABC's chief global affairs correspondent and anchor, Martha Raddatz, who's joining us now from Washington. And Martha, it is quite remarkable that in an election year, our President Biden, who is a Democrat, would make reference to a former president, a Republican and conservative icon.
Well, because they have a very similar message. That is what President Biden is trying to echo, because President Reagan also said, we've learned that isolationism never was and never will be an acceptable response to tyrannical governments with an expansionist intent. That is the message that Ronald Reagan was trying to drive home. That is clearly the message that President Biden is trying to draw home. And he is probably hoping that some of those Republicans who are on the fence will hear that message and see him as an alternative to Donald Trump. But I got to say, with the power of that place and what President Reagan also called those men who scaled that wall, the roll call of honor. Indeed it is, Whit.
And Martha, even though he didn't reference Ukraine directly, still Ukraine looms large over this entire gathering.
It certainly does. As Mary said, that is the thread that connects all of this. And we have heard President Biden again and again talk about Ukraine and the importance of fighting Russia.